We want people to be able to get signed on and into this forum. We had expected you were going to arrive a little bit after 1 o'clock, but we're delighted that you're here, and we are going to accommodate with shorter remarks on the transition from the morning to the afternoon.
Peter, I just got on so that I could hear what's going on before my turn. Not that I'm not in order to ask for a change in the flow of the event.
Okay, perfect. So around 1:10, 1:15 would be a fine, good start time for you.
Absolutely, yeah. But I don't want to miss out on what else is going on here. So
That's wonderful. Thank you. Well, we had a very interesting morning that our president, Toby Fife, was planning to recap briefly as we start the afternoon. So that should give you some insight into how it's all been going today.
But you're sure you're okay with that, Minister? Because really, we don't want to keep you longer than you had anticipated. But
no, I came on early because I want to find out what you guys have been up to.
Well, so basically, we've invited people to sort of come back in at 1 o'clock. So we'll give them a few minutes, and then because we're expecting a slightly different crew from this morning. This morning we were looking at media disinformation. I'm going to do a little bit of an intro to the session and how we're running it, a little bit of technical stuff we go through. So
no worries. I'm just here. We're also wanting to make sure our sound is good, and a tech check. So it sounds like everything's good.
Yeah, terrific. So of course I have to ask you the obvious question: What's the weather like in BC?
Looking pretty nice out there, but it's not 35 degrees or whatever it's been in Toronto and Ottawa.
It's been brutal. There's no doubt about that. My biggest challenge is dealing with tent caterpillars who are eating all my trees.
Really?
Brutal. Get rid of these. Anyway.
Well, what is it that is preventing from the presidential planes from taking off in Washington? There's some kind of a
cicadas.
Cicadas.
Yeah. And I don't know whether it's the noise or the jet airplanes like birds. That's not quite clear to me. But we here it's just whatsoever the word is. It's an infestation. Never seen anything like it. Lost my apple tree.
Okay, well, I'll just hang out and let you do your thing, and you tell me when you'd like me to make my remarks.
Perfect. So Peter will start at the very beginning. I will say a few words, and then of a technical nature, as I said, and then I will formally introduce you, and we'll aim to get you, 7 to 8 minutes in if we can. Make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay.
Let's just go back and we can
mute myself and decamerize for just a moment.
Great. So I'm watching the numbers go up in our Zoom channel. And we have our YouTube channel running and Slack channel running. So I'm hoping everybody's found their way back into the afternoon session of Digital Directions. Welcome back. It was a terrific morning. My name is Peter Bruce, and I will be moderating the afternoon session. And we're just delighted that you are able to join us today. Just to get the afternoon session started, I'd like you to join me in welcoming the president of the Institute on Governance, Mr. Toby Fife.
Peter, thank you so much. And like Peter said, it was a totally amazing conversation this morning. And those of you who were with us in the morning, I'm delighted you could stay with us. But I suspect that there'll be quite a different group of people will be joining us this afternoon, because what we're going to focus on is what I'm calling the management dimension of this topic. In other words, exploring how we can rethink the traditional ways of working and delivering services for a smart and inclusive digital government. A reminder to those of you joining us that we are a not-for-profit charity, the IOG. We believe in good government, its democratic institutions. We believe that they cannot be taken for granted, but must be nourished and supported in an environment that's increasingly challenged. And before I go further, as I did this morning, let me acknowledge that we meet on the traditional lands of Indigenous people, and reinforced by the horrific discovery in Kamloops, that we all have a responsibility to make reconciliation and healing real and meaningful. In Ottawa, where I am located, we acknowledge the land we stand on is the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. They are the traditional guardians of this land, and we acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory. Again, as I did this morning, particularly for the new people, let me spend a moment on the technical housekeeping. The beauty of these virtual events is that we are able to use a number of platforms that will really make it easier for you to engage and for us to collectively have good conversations and dialogue. So essentially, we are streaming, of course, on Zoom and YouTube, but the group discussion that will follow this presentation at 1:35 will not be streamed on YouTube because of the breakout format. And Becky Hollop will be sharing the link to you of the YouTube channel in the Zoom and Slack chats now. Now, if you want to participate in that breakout but can't join Zoom, you can do it through our moderated Slack workspace, and we'll share the link in the Zoom and YouTube chats now to that. A reminder that if you are in the Zoom room, that we've disabled your cameras and microphone to protect the session from unwanted malicious content and Zoom bombing. You will be able to use your camera and microphone, of course, during the breakout activities. So how are we going to engage with you? Well, we're doing it using a program called Slido, which allows us to use word clouds, polling, and question crowdsourcing. And everyone, whether you're participating in our Zoom channel, YouTube, or Slack, can use Slido. And Becky will now share the link to that in our three in YouTube, Zoom, and Slack. We have two dedicated Zoom and Slack moderators for you today, Catherine Waters and Tara Mirza, and they'll be available to help you with any questions if you put them in the chat. And if you have questions for our speaker, you can add them to your Slack, Zoom, or YouTube chat. And Peter, as the moderator, will make sure to add them to the Slido for you and to bring them forward as possible. So, reminder of what we're doing today. Our goal overall today was to set the stage for designing what we're calling a blueprint for an inclusive, digitally enabled government. And this is part of a Can Gov Better initiative, an IOG project that is working in multiple fora to ensure strong, responsive, and relevant public sector institutions that can meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. So, let me introduce our keynote speaker. This afternoon, we're exploring how we can rethink traditional ways of working and traditional ways of delivering services for a smart and inclusive digital government. And so I'm honored to introduce the Honourable Joyce Murrary, Canada's first Minister of Digital Government, who will be our keynote speaker this afternoon. In her revised mandate letter from the Prime Minister, Ms. Murray was tasked with, among other things, modernizing, quote, the way government delivers benefits and services to Canadians, quote. And I think it's fair to say that for her, this involves no less than system-wide change. Ms. Murray is a Liberal MP for Vancouver Quadra, from where she's speaking today. Minister Murray, welcome to the IOG, and perhaps I can just turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, and really happy to be joining you. I just wish that I had been able to to be present for the conversations that you've had today, which I'm sure have been super interesting. And I do appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. And first, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from my home in Vancouver on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. So I really see events like these as being so vital to the challenges that we are facing in all sectors of society, multiple orders of government. And in fact, this morning, I spent several hours discussing issues around governance and digital open data, and how, well, at the Open Government Partnership Steering Committee meeting. And there again, we were talking about how transparency and resilience and really how our democracies are functioning under pressure of the pandemic can be something that we work together to help the 79 countries of the OGP take next steps. So this is a great day for me to be involved in several discussions of this type of very important, very fundamental work. So what I'm going to do is give you a much narrower snapshot of the Government of Canada's current shift to digital government and simply how we're going about it. Of course, it's no secret that when it comes to digital service delivery, and I know some of you on this in this event, like Amanda, for example, have written books on it. When it comes to digital service delivery, the Government of Canada just has a little bit of work still to do. We know how much people depended on digital tools to shop, communicate, learn, and connect, especially during these last 14, 15 months of the pandemic. But it is how people connect with each other on a regular basis outside of emergencies as well. And really, the rapid deployment of digital tools and services to Canadians that came forward during the pandemic has created an expectation that our government can and will continue to provide these services in a timely manner. So for me personally, transforming people's experience with their Government of Canada transactions and services is a driving force behind my work, as you mentioned, as Canada's first dedicated or standalone Minister of Digital Government. And my mandate is to lead the federal government's digital transformation, which requires system-wide change, as you've mentioned, so that we can consistently serve Canadians in the ways that they need and expect today. So what a huge privilege. I feel every day this incredible challenge, so interesting and really so underpinning of the kind of trust and assistance that Canadians expect from their government. So we need to have digital services that are secure, reliable, and easy to use and access at any time from any device. That's really the foundational idea. And for me, what's also important about that is the more people who would like to use a digital means to do their transaction or receive their service. So the more self-service we can enable, the more government resources should be available for those who really need in-person assistance, and there will always be those. So when the pandemic hit over a year ago, the public service, like so many businesses, quickly pivoted to remote work and remote service delivery. But we also managed to roll out brand new pandemic-related benefits and supports for Canadians and businesses effectively and in record time while pivoting to working from home. And it was almost overnight that the digital teams in digital government equipped hundreds of thousands of public servants to be able to work from home so they could continue to provide the services that were needed. We had to quickly build new accessible digital tools and communicate with Canadians in more inclusive ways about COVID-19 and the emergency supports that were available. And so clearly we can pivot as a government, as a public service, to new ways of doing things when we need to. So my job is to seize this momentum and push the Government of Canada to make this way of working the norm. So that sounds pretty simple, but as we know, when the entire structure of the federal government in our country was set up in an analog era, this is a bit of a complicated challenge. But by speaking with a number of people, both within and outside the public service over the last year and a half, we've identified some of our biggest challenges and broke the work into 4 separate areas that I'll outline. So firstly, the first challenge is to continue to modernize the way that we replace, build, and manage major IT systems. So this includes addressing accessibility in enterprise systems, workplace devices, adaptive technologies, and legacy systems. It also deals with the infrastructure and connectivity and so on of the major systems. We're up to the challenge of this modernizing, and this absorbs much of my attention. Perhaps too much of my attention, but this is important work. So because as you know, there's an enormous variety of legacy systems and IT infrastructure that need attention for us to go to a more digital modular approach in our work. And one of the things that we're doing is working to transition away from single departmental networks to a modern network that protects us from evolving cyber threat landscape and focuses on dependable, consistent, and secure access right across the government. This is an important, I mean, we see what's happening with the increase in cyber attacks. And so the updated network will be using the latest security measures that do a better job of protecting personal information, connect seamlessly to cloud and enterprise data centers, provide security measures at those connections, but also allow us to move at speed and scale and have the connectivity that the public servants need. So that shift to cloud-based services and cross-government data centers will reduce the risk of major IT failure, which of course is critical for the Canadians who we serve, and also will reduce our carbon footprint substantially, which is important to me personally and to all of us here. So that's area one. The second area of work is on providing the service experience that people want when they're doing their transactions in a modern world. And we know that it can be a challenge right now for people, whether it's businesses or individuals, to find and use many of the government services and information. As well, federal systems and processes don't operate seamlessly together from one department to the next. And this can cause duplication, inconsistencies, and frustrating login experiences. And that's because people often have to interact with each department separately and provide their personal information separately each time they apply for something, whether it be a passport update or booking a national park campsite. So the digital ID service called Sign in Canada that we're developing will make it easier for us to have that more horizontal approach and enable people to log in once. We're not there yet, but we're working on towards that. And another part of the second category of work is building in accessibility from the start and designing with people who use our services. So that's so this is the people-facing part, that second category of work. The third area of work is to take a coordinated approach to digital operations right across the government. So a government as a platform approach, but that is going to take some substantial focus and attention on the key backbone and elements of digital. And it doesn't mean a one-size-fits-all approach. We want to use a modular approach that's coordinated. That's the key thing. So traditionally, of course, departments function as standalone organizations guided by their own specific mandates and somewhat hierarchical reporting structures. Each department in the past developed its own IT infrastructure. So we collectively have a myriad of different systems that are not able to talk to each other. So we are on a pathway to shift this. We've developed the digital operations strategic plan to ensure there's some consistency and government-wide direction on data stewardship and IT systems management, so that over time we are shifting to secure and reliable services that align with our digital standards. Fourthly, though, this is not just an IT challenge. Of course, it's also a culture challenge. And so that's why the fourth area of work is transforming how we work. And that means tackling long-standing norms, long-standing institutional barriers to digital innovation and inclusive design, the processes, governance systems, the procurement practices, working to ensure modern digital skills are just a normal part of our workforce. So the culture needs to be one where digital is a mindset. We're working in the open and collaboratively, making data available and posting it so it can be used by private sector and public sectors alike in a way that respects privacy, of course, collaborating widely with other sectors and levels of government, which is something I'm working on, ensuring we have the legal authorities to do that. So that's a lot of words. Those four categories of work are what sees me and my attention every day and my teams. I'm aiming to put a bit more of my attention on the disruptive stuff that we need to do and really ramp up to have this be a change that happens in real time and not in, I don't know, long-term time. But as I've said, it's an ambitious plan, but it's an ambition that we as a government have and that Canadians and Canadian businesses deserve. So I just want to close by saying I've seen our public service do absolutely amazing work. And so I have a lot of confidence in their ability to pursue the strategy with me as we develop it, and to continue collaborating with private sector and academia and those such as the people who are all of you on this event today. So these bridges, these links between what you're doing and what I'm doing are really critical. And so we have a bit of a hill to climb, but I think that transforming the experience that people have in their interactions with the Government of Canada is something that is possible and is inevitable. So appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Minister Murray, for sharing your plans for digital government in Canada. It's very interesting that you're collaborating across jurisdictions and I believe around the world on some of the thinking, and we'll be contributing to some of that thinking as we go through our workshops and panel discussions this afternoon. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned the disruptive dimension to what it is you're looking to do, because we have a category for, we're going to look at the opportunities, we're going to look at some of the barriers, areas we need to study further, but we've included a category called wild ideas. So maybe we'll come up with some disruption possibilities there. I really, your comments about how quickly the government could pivot to a remote, effective, and actually fast delivery model when forced to do that through the current pandemic, I think it's a beautiful example of what is possible and the type of bar that we've set for ourselves going forward. So hopefully we'll be able to live up to that by following the recently released digital operations strategic plan. Thank you for sharing those 4 key pillars of that. So on behalf of the Institute on Governance and today's audience, thank you for sharing your strategy, your plans. We appreciate your contribution to a smart and inclusive digital government in Canada, which is the theme we will be exploring for the rest of the day.
Well, thank you very much, Peter, and thank you, Toby, for your part in this. And I'm looking forward to reading any of the summaries of your deliberations today. If you have them available, we'll be searching them out, and I'll be reading them. So thank you.
Looks like Peter
Hi.
muted. Peter, you're unfrozen.
Yeah, I was just wondering what was happening, whether it was my end or the minister's end.
No, the minister was fine. She has said her thanks and has departed. So back over.
Perfect. Okay, great. So now we've been inspired by the minister's remarks. We're going to get down to some work for the afternoon.